Hi, I'm Russ Camarda, an actor and independent filmmaker in New York, and in between the chances I get to do my own creative projects, I love to sit down with other artists and discuss how it is they do what they do. And that's sort of the goal for this podcast, the ACT podcast, Art, Craft, Truth. This time around, we have a conversation with actor and independent filmmaker Stefano Dafre. As an actor, Stefano is a graduate of the Neighborhood Playhouse, which is a famous acting program in New York. As an actor, he's worked with the likes of directors like Ang Lee. As an independent filmmaker, his work is screened at the Cannes Film Festival. He's been seen on MSNBC and an amazing young talent. I got the chance to work with him as an actor and had him as my director for a film, and his insights into the craft are quite fascinating. So let's take a listen to Stefano Dafre.
I'm
lining
in. Yeah.
Thanks to Ed for helping us out.
Thank you so much, Ed.
All right.
Our ASMR NPR.
That's right.
All
right. So as I described to you, my hope with this whole program is to talk to artists about how it is they do what they do, the actual nuts and bolts of their craft. The name of the show is Art, Craft, Truth. So it's art from the ether and crafted by the craftsman into revealing truth for their audience, whatever that particular art or craft is. So you started out as an actor, right? First.
Yep. And
then went into
filmmaking.
Theater and filmmaking eventually down the road. So first off, you're born in Canada, right?
Yeah. So born in Canada, lived in Italy for a little bit of time.
How long were you in Italy?
5. And and my parents were born there. So Italian passports, Canadian passports, and became an American in 2015.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what was the process like?
Well,
to become an American?
Very few can withstand the process of even being an artist. So becoming a citizen, an American citizen as an artist is crazy challenging. Because you're not considered in a pool of engineers or people in computer science in a field that is really, important. But important to the American government.
Exactly.
Right,
Right. You're not essential.
Yeah. But when I got out of school, I did a casting for A.V. Kaufman, and I was able to get a role in Taking Woodstock. And Taking Woodstock at the time...
Ang Lee, right?
Right.
Ang Lee.
And he had just won an Oscar for Brokeback Mountain.
Right.
And so that helped...
Just pull that cord.
Sure.
Yeah, you choke at yourself there. You just swing that around the other side of your head or pull it close. Yeah, I don't want to see you kill yourself there. There you go. Yeah. That's cool. There you go. You got some...
Does this look better?
Yeah, you look good.
Yeah. So, feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah, you're feeling good.
Yeah. So
let me back up for a second. When you said you got out of school, you went to school. Didn't you go to the Neighborhood Playhouse?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been living in New York for a long, 14 years. And I moved to New York. I was 21, and 21 went to the Neighborhood Playhouse. 2 years acting program, but before then I had been at other theater schools too. So I had been to schools in Canada, and I studied theater for many years. In fact, speaking about nuts and bolts, I hadn't actually learnt any acting until I fell in love with the Meisner technique and fell in love with.
Did you choose that did you choose Meisner in the Neighborhood Playhouse for a reason?
I was at the Ryerson Theater School, which was a really big school in Toronto, and it was run by Perry Schneiderman, who was with the National Theatre School of Canada. And most countries have national theater schools, unlike the United States. It's a big sort of a request that Peter Sellers and Kevin Spacey tried to do for many generations. Different people have tried to pick it up to try to do a national theater school in the United States, but it always sort of failed.
It did.
But so I was at a theater school that was there, and it was Stanislavski based in Toronto, and I was using whatever talent or charm
Right.
or whatever.
Innate,
right?
right.
But I had no skills. I had no real construction, no ability to create a character and know, like a carpenter, what I was doing.
You had no craft.
No craft. Zero craft.
Right.
Lots of ideas of art.
Right.
Lots of ideas of things and intentions of what I wanted, but I didn't know how to connect the dots.
Right.
And so when I landed in the Playhouse, I sort of knew within, I guess, the first 3 months of how badly I was doing and falling on my ass and like just realizing I was like, okay, I'm in the right spot.
So yeah, those first few repetition exercises.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, it was a brutal time because, there was a cut system. You had 3 classes that first year. So each class was comprised of 20 to 22 people. So you had 60 to 64 people in that first year, and they only took 28 the second year. So a third were kept.
Right.
2/3 were let go.
Right.
And your job, right, was to, at least my job, I thought, was to get accepted and keep going into the second year. And I realized I remember Thanksgiving. I remember that time in November where I was like, I'm not going to be asked back. There's no way I'm going to be asked back. So I might as well stop trying to be good. And I might just try to learn.
There you go.
I should probably use this time to learn, because after a year, I'm going to have to figure out where the fuck I'm going to go to school.
Right.
And by some miracle, I got asked back.
So that's the lesson there, is once you let go of this sort of crazy expectation about the bureaucracy of it, you were able to learn the craft. So so now you come out of that as an actor, but what are you pulling? Are you still to this day, because you still are an actor as well as a filmmaker, you still to this day pull from the Meisner stuff exclusively? Have you added other tools to the toolbox? Like, as an actor, what is your process there?
So when I was in Los Angeles around 2010, 2011, 2013, because I was signed to an agency out there, I had studied with somebody who was with Ude Hagen. Okay. And I liked the Ude Hagen, and I always liked, I liked Ude Hagen and Michael Chekhov. But they were great books.
Yeah,
they were great. They were such great. Sorry, just amazing.
You could say whatever you want,
but just like amazing ideas of like pulling from the center and pulling. But the real nuts and bolts of learning how to act, everything that I know to be true of anything that I've ever done that someone would say was good, was basically out of Sanford Meisner.
Okay.
And I still use that with the actors I work with today on set, and I can see them stuck. The 2 departments that I love the most when I'm directing is I love talent and I love art direction. Production design,
right,
and talent are the 2 parts where I enjoy filmmaking. It's not a labor to me.
Yeah.
It's not a laboring process. And so those moments when they're looking for a way out, right? They're looking to know what they're doing or what they're saying.
That's when you pull for your Meisner tools.
Yeah.
So you get out of school and you get the was it like a small like an
under 5
type thing in the Ang Lee
an under
picture?
5. Yeah.
Okay. And what was that experience like? Now, is this your first time on a big set?
First time ever on a set.
Okay.
First time ever. No student film. No nothing.
And it's Ang
Lee.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So what is that experience like? You walk on. For people, again, this is for people who don't, who've never been in our place. What's that experience like? Young actor walking on a big set.
Super intimidating. When you're hooked up to mics, I remember the sound. They have 3 sound engineers because it was a multi-million-dollar film, and they're like, Stefano, you don't have to project in this one. I was like, but I was taught to project. This is terrible. They're like, yeah. I remember that it was shot at the scenes this one scene that I had that was overnight, and it was. I was walking along a path, and this path had like 1960s cars that were during the Woodstock Film Festival, music festival. Right. And every time I did a take, the reset took 20 minutes.
Wow.
Because they had to reverse every single car.
Oh, Jesus.
And I remember
Jesus.
thinking to myself, there's moments in your life where you kind of know that you have no choice but to do something well.
Right.
There's no choice.
Yeah.
Because there's
too many people out there counting on things to go right.
Yeah. There's no margin of error in these things. And I think that human beings and artists rise to the occasion. It's the difference between like when a terrible dress rehearsal happens, you can have a great opening night.
Right. Usually that's the case, right?
Yeah. And I've always sort of believed that about that experience. And so
did you rise to the occasion?
Yeah, I did. I think I remember he said to me, I was the first one. He gave me a couple notes, but one of the last notes that he said to me when we were walking to craft services together, he said,
"You and Ang Lee."
Yeah, he said, "Pretty good." He was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." He goes, "And you got it in 3 takes."
That's the
He
filmmaker's
said,
concern.
he's like, save me and studio money. And I was like, yeah. And so then that opened up a door for me to do a lot of independent films because I was, able to book little jobs here and there and
well, Ang Lee is a pretty good third-party endorsement.
Yeah.
When you've got that gig.
Yeah.
All right, so that's cool. So to this day, we're going to get into all the stuff you do now, but to this day, when you look back at that moment, do you still, on your sets, do you still see that set? Do you still remember things they didn't go, okay, because you got tremendous amounts of extras, tremendous amounts of money on the line. Does that ring into your work now that you're doing it? Now that you're the guy making the call?
Yeah, because you don't have the vocabulary to articulate the function of ADs, of assistant directors. I love to watch things and I love to observe. I think by nature, if you're a filmmaker, you're just observing life and you're constantly cataloging everything and saying, oh, this is useful. Right. Let me look at this color, this tone, this gel, this like tapestry, right? And so the function of ADs and the function of how to run a set, a chaotic set with like 450 extras, was powerful to know that. And so later when I started to direct, I started to see all the holes in many of the filmmakers that independent filmmakers that I knew and that we know in common, people that are in New York and in Long Island, who don't know still to this day how to run a set. Yeah, they're not. In fact, in a sense, they're not. They don't almost believe in that. They don't have faith that that function is going to make them a better artist. Right. A better way of saying it is that the Coen brothers talk about this all the time, that the more prepared you are, the more room you have to make spontaneous decisions. Right. But if you're not prepared, everything that you're telling other people is spontaneous or creative is actually coming out of desperation.
Well, I mean, we'll get into how we both look at those things, but you're absolutely right about running a set, and because most independent filmmakers get into it where they are the director and AD, sometimes the cinematographer, before they eventually get to the places where they can have those things crewed out. So if they were never good at it at that level, once they get to the point where somebody else can work with them, they're never going to know how. They never did the job to begin with. So, so you're an actor for, let's say, how long are an actor where you're out there doing other projects, short films, feature films, independent work? How long are you that guy until you step in to do it and to be a director? And do you step in as a director right away, or are you kind of just part of a set where you're an AD, or did you just jump right in as a producer director?
It's a great question. So during the time of So let's say being a professional actor
Right.
for 6 years,
Okay.
and then six years, and then getting sick. I remember
Getting sick physically or
physically. I remember getting really, really sick. I had terrible. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had terrible arthritis. I had arthritis in my spine and my
Jesus.
wrists and my hands, and I was really I went to multiple doctors and I didn't know what I had, and I had all this time on my hands to be at a hospital. And during that time, I would take classes at SVA. And so when I took those classes at SVA, this would be after the
School of Visual Arts.
School of Visual Arts, East 23rd Street,
Right.
New York City.
Absolutely.
2 years after you and I had met.
Okay.
Because you and I had met in 2014.
That's right. I was trying to think of what year it was, but yeah, it was 2014. We did that film together.
Right. So you and I meet in 2014. You're already cast in that movie.
Right.
As the lead. As the lead.
Actually, you were already cast.
Well,
that's what they told me.
Well, I heard it's possible.
It's totally possible.
Yeah, but we met through the long process of auditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
that was a
total
open call.
Yeah. And we ended up getting
right
these roles.
I know.
These roles to shoot in Hudson, New York.
In Boston, right outside of Boston.
Right outside on a farm near the Berkshires.
Right.
Different locations, and we become like best pals, artistic pals. So sort of I knew,
Right.
when I worked with you the first time, I knew what a competent artist you were. I sort of, I could see past the veil of us, and I could see sort of how good you were and real you were, and it made me a better actor.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting story about that. I did that. I went in to read for that role for Kelly was the director.
Kelly Beam.
Good kid, and he had a great crew. They were really, really talented guys, young guys. And I went in to read for that in New York. I forget where I read for it, but I wasn't the description that they were looking for. They were looking for sort of a Tony Soprano, big, lumbering, balding, coughing kind of guy. But I did the thing, and when I read it, he's like, okay.
Wow.
We'll do it that way.
Wow.
Like they liked whatever that was, and they were like, it doesn't matter that you did not the picture, which was I give him credit for,
Right.
which we can talk about as directors and artists. And then he said to me, I'm so glad we got you, because we had a little conversation, and then we went out shopping for clothes and all this stuff. He's like, I'm so glad we got you. He said, because the guy, the young guy it's a 2-character thing. The one guy you're opposite is very different from you. He's a lot more, just sort of a free, happy dude, and and I'm like, okay, because how I come off a little stern sometimes. So they were like, okay, blue collar looking guy, and this guy, he could not wait to see what would happen.
Yeah.
But what was fascinating is, and now he's put that in my head, right? So
Right.
now I'm like, well, what kind of
Fucking
fruitcake, snowflake, hippie am I gonna?
Yeah.
So when I got up to Boston or wherever we were outside there, and we first met, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You knew right away, all right, I see what he's saying, and our approach may be slightly different, but at least, see, I like talking to artists who are artists by trade, but they're not, you can have a conversation.
Right.
I don't like actors,
Right.
and we immediately had that, so.
Not pretentious.
Yeah, exactly.
Not pretentious.
Right.
We have a very functional. I mean, I already know before stepping foot sort of in your house, and I already know like a little bit about you. I already know like you like David Mamet, and I already know that the reason that you like David Mamet is because I know you like the functionality,
the practicality. Yeah, the practicality. I don't like dime store psychology so much, so I try to stay away from that in my art.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how we hit it off. So I'm sorry. You go back. We do this thing now. You're still an actor, and you're 6 years into it. And at what point?
I get sick.
And
I get sick
after that picture.
I get sick about a year and a half after.
Okay,
I'm starting to develop arthritis. I have I have like sepsis in my fingers. Like,
Did you ever find out what the problem?
I still have a really reactive form of arthritis, right?
Okay.
So
Like an autoimmune
disease,
rheumatoid type thing. Okay, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, and it had spread in different spots.
Okay.
And so, like, my diet had to change. I'd give up coffee. I tried lots of medications, sulfur medications that were really sort of bad. Then I tried like methotrexate, which was like a kind of low form of
cancer drug.
A cancer drug. Yeah, that's right. There was a chemotherapy drug. So during this period, I remember I was signed to an agency, and I was like, I can't go to these auditions for Broad City. I can't. There's nothing functionally in me. There's nothing functional in me to do a comedy. There's nothing funny about what is going on in my life. I can't possibly do a fucking comedy at Broad City audition. I couldn't possibly do this.
Okay.
And so I'm going to School of Visual Arts, like part-time, taking classes in cinematography and directing, and I'm spending time at the Museum of Modern Art. And I'm alone. I'm alone a lot of the times. I'm alone. I'm at the MoMA by myself, and I think that's also why I have such a reverence.
It's a great place to meet chicks for you.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal. If you're a member, also dates don't cost anything.
Exactly.
$5, I think, to bring a person. It is $5 to bring a person. And so spending that time. And so if you have your membership, also you could see films.
Okay.
And you would see films in like their basement, and you could see weird like Czechoslovakian films and East German films, you know. And during that time, I'm spending a lot of time basically at the hospital, going to different going to the MoMA, trying to figure out what drugs I'm going to be put on. I'm on my third drug, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not for the first time in my life, I'm not physically able to pull it together before an audition. Okay. I don't like the way that I look. I don't like the tone of my skin. I can tell that everything hurts in my body. I can tell that I'm not well.
Right.
And in this period of time, I meet this man Graham, who was on the advisory board of the MoMA, and Graham said to me, he said, he was interested, and we talked, we met each other at a screening for I don't remember the title of the film, but it was an East German film.
A classic.
It was a black and white film that had been banned. Been banned in Germany, and so the MoMA had gotten
it's just getting better and better.
35 millimeter print of it, right? So only like
they pulled from an oven.
I'm the youngest guy in this class. I'm not in this theater. Everyone else is like 67, 80 years old, or donors. And I'm in this theater. I meet Graham, and I tell him. He goes, "What are you spending your time doing?" I said, "I'm going to spend time at School of Visual Arts. You should do this film." And he helped me raise money. And
there's the beauty.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah, and that became
yeah. He helped you raise money for a project of his?
No, for a project.
So you had something in mind you wanted to do as a filmmaker, right at that, from just hanging out and getting through your sickness and taking these. You started to go, okay, I have something I want to do. Were you a writer before that?
I'd always written as a kid. My parents, my mother, and my father always thought that I was going to be a writer.
Did you?
They were shocked when I went to theater school. Shocked.
A screenwriter, though.
Well, I mean, I was in all the like English lit classes that were like elective classes, and girlfriends that I had in college that were very literary and read Oscar Wilde and W.H. Auden, and so some of that rubbed off. But I also I was in an elective. I was in a lot of poetry classes, and I was fascinated by like real. Like weird stuff, like who was the poet laureate of the year, and what were they writing, and so. So
what was the project? What was the first story that you decide, I'm going to turn this into a film? What is this thing that we're talking about?
I knew very quickly a few things. The first thing that I knew was I knew the last scene of the film. That I knew it was going to be. that I knew it was going to be a reveal of 3 different women, or initially just one woman with the door opening, an opposite shot of like the way that the door closes as
in
a
The
wash in
Godfather?
Godfather
Yeah,
with
okay.
Kay.
I gotcha.
I knew I could work my way backwards from that shot.
This is interesting. So, story-wise,
Yeah.
all you have is a visual in your head,
Yeah.
and you build a story from this. You kind of reverse engineered this story out of visuals in your head.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think because I was in a place where I didn't want to be seen, I made sure that the protagonists were women, and I made sure I was one of the 3 women, and then I also, to add to that, I also didn't want to rely on being an actor.
Right.
I knew friends of mine who were actors who made independent films.
Right.
And I knew, visually speaking, art direction wise, production design, I wanted to be the opposite.
Right.
In a sense, I wanted a film to just have voiceover that was visually stunning.
Right.
And
a true cinema director.
I wanted nobody to know
Right.
that I'd ever acted a day in my life
Sure.
before I directed.
Okay.
That was my dream, in a sense, and kind of like hiding in.
That's a smart idea, just from a practical reason. Of some people take it a little weird when the writer director is the actor in it. I understand that.
Yeah. I mean, and so, well, because I think the desire of what I've seen, right, is to make these scenes that are heavy on dialogue.
Sure.
And they rely on, like, I know that storytelling.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and if I didn't do that, I like plays. I mean, we talk about this. I mean, you talk about this when we were together this summer. We were spending the 4th of July together. But that, you know, the ability and the contact that we have together is rich, especially rich in the theater, in the medium of theater.
Absolutely, it's different.
And I think in screenplays you can synthesize information with less dialogue.
Well, I mean, the goal always is, as they said, is show, don't say.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're going to work in cinema, you want to use that frame because, you know, unlike sitting in an audience where the audience can choose to look left, look right, you're choosing for them.
Yeah.
So you can fill that frame with a lot of information, and it's your job to kind of make the visual part of the storytelling, the storytelling. Although there are great, obviously, scripts and dialogue and terrific performances, but it's a totally different medium and totally different way to direct from the theater to film. But it's interesting that you were smart enough. If you had gone to film school as a film student, director from the beginning, that more likely would have been your path anyway.
Right.
But as an actor, writer, you would normally want to just do some dialogue heavy thing. But it's great that you didn't do that.
I mean, I'm curious also. I'm curious also, like genuinely curious about The Night That Never. You directed.
I didn't direct Night Never Sleeps.
Right, okay.
That was the Fred Carpenter picture.
Okay, no,
Those
yeah,
are those,
so
the
that's-
Night for Day was one I did.
What was the name of the film that Sean was your cinematographer?
Sean did my first. He did my second two. He did Night for Day, which was the gothic sort of vampire romance thing.
Right.
And then he did Night Never Sleeps, and he did Send No Flowers. He did the two Carpenter pictures, and I did one movie before that. My first one was, and I had another guy named Peter Benjamin who was my cinematographer then, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
So, but how you thrusted into filmmaking? How do you, like, what worked for you as a director that you pulled from as an actor, and then what did you realize, or I'm sure you must have had you things you said, oh, this is not going to work.
What did I use from the acting craft into the?
Yeah, and then what did you pull from the acting craft that helped you with that first picture?
Well, I think the thing you learn, I think more than anything, directing anywhere in the theater or in film, it's a people management and time management thing more than anything. I
Right.
mean, you're hoping that you've cast people who understand how to do what they do, but more than anything, what I learned, what I pulled from my acting stuff was to understand how people interact interpersonally, and to want to talk about Meisner and stuff, to look at them moment to moment together off set.
Okay.
Like I told you once before, I would always do a table read of a screenplay, even though I don't need to hear it. I mean, I'd rather do it on the set, but I always did a table read not to hear the thing, but to just put a table in the room and then invite everybody. 6 o'clock's the table read. No assigned seats, no assigned scripts, and just see who sits next to who. Yeah. See how they talk to each other, and then go through the script and watch how they watch other people, and at the halfway point take a break, and then see who goes off and has a cup of coffee with. And now I know how I'm going to do my shooting schedule, because I go, okay, well, these two clearly, this one thinks this one's full of shit, and in the piece maybe they're perfect for that. So I'm going to stack that up. I'm going to let that build. You start to manage people, I think, more. And
Wow.
If I learned anything as an actor into the directing part of it, was understanding people moment to moment, and then using that in the piece as best you could to get what you wanted. And also, as an actor, as you know, as you're going moment to moment, you're dealing truthfully. If you go in with your own sort of thing, and it's inauthentic when there's something else that's coming. So you're trying to direct somebody, and they don't take it well, straight on. So maybe you got to direct through this guy. You talk to this guy, but you really need this guy to hear what you're saying, because now it's like, you know what I mean? Like you're doing this sort of billiards.
Yeah, you're
banking
you're
off
connecting one to hit the wall off the bank shot, right? You know what I mean? You're using the backboard to hit inside the net.
It's all that stuff, and you know it.
Yeah.
That's that stuff that, and I love that.
It's lethal though. That's lethal. I've never thought. I'm going to start using that to do table reads to see who spends time with each other during a break or an intermission. I also know something about you. I know how much faith. Faith is deep. Your creative faith in the. I don't want to use the word chaos, but I want to say in
the moment, the organic part of the moment.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that because we're different that way. Which is
right.
I respect everybody like you who works the way you do. But yeah.
But
I do have a lot of faith in that stuff.
Yeah. It's that faith is. I feel like a lapsed Catholic in that faith, in the sense that I'm always, it's there in my heart. It's there in my heart to give that faith to them,
right?
To how the chemistry of certain actors are going to be, and actually that's an amazing, competent thing to see as a director. I think. I'm concerned what happens if that doesn't work.
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about
let's
clarify this for people who don't know really what we're talking about.
Right.
I mean, as you talked about before, if you're prepared and you've done your great prep and you've done your shot list, and you can then be free on the set to allow organic, truthful things to work, because the frame work is set, and it's rock solid, so that things aren't going to go hey. So now within that frame, just kill that. So within that frame, you can create. Yeah. You can be free to create. And I totally agree with that. I want a certain level of that frame myself. But then there's guys like me who are a lot more like I don't do extensive shot lists. I might have an idea of where I want to go, but I have an idea of the story I want to tell. I have the tools in front of me, tools meaning actors and set pieces and whatever. But I walk into a situation and I'm much more comfortable allowing whatever that situation is to dictate how it is I'm going to set up that shot. And I think that comes from the theater stuff of, rehearse. Absolutely get your rehearsal in. But once you get on stage, if I knock over the glasses, the audience saw that. If I don't deal with that, That's real. That's real
You
life.
can't pretend.
You can't pretend
that,
that didn't
there's
happen.
water spilled all over your shoe.
Right.
As a
So to
character.
transpose that into
Right.
filmmaking, I take it kind of to a retarded degree, if
Right.
I can say that word, like a ridiculous degree, where it's like I'm so backwards in my preparation that I allow whatever is there to be whatever it is, and that's fine for me. I'm comfortable there, and whatever springs out of it. And I think that also is a function of not having money.
Right.
Like never, literally just not having the ability. If I had all the resources, maybe I would be much more available to be like, just get this the way I want it. But I'm I get real, I don't like the word vision. I get very uncomfortable with.
allergic.
Yeah.
Allergic.
I get allergic to this sort of control of the director. But, as I said, there are artists I work with all the time.
Why you love Cassavetes? I'm
I
sure.
I do like Cassavetes.
Yeah.
Again, but
Yeah.
I love Kubrick.
Right.
Now, there's a guy.
Whoa.
I mean, you want to talk about
Control freak.
Control freak. But could I ever work on that set? Well, yeah, I guess if you paid me, but I would lose my mind. But so you fall somewhere in between those two things.
Yeah. So my reverence for Cassavetes and my reverence for guerrilla documentary filmmaking
Okay.
is deep. But there is so much that I'm curious about in relationship to color,
Right.
in relationship to aesthetics,
Right.
in relationship to how that affects my mood and love and the way that we see each other, that I need that.
Yeah.
Because I'm dying for that. I'm dying to visually be, I almost say it in this way, that like when I spend a lot of time at the MoMA, I don't like artwork that has a lot of context written
Right.
next to the artwork.
Right, to tell you what it is.
So that the artist is spending X amount of time, let's say 30%, to explain a piece that viscerally I don't understand. And that the majority of people don't understand. In my opinion, you've failed.
Right.
And I want to use that barometer for myself.
Right.
I want to visually be able to give you as much information.
With no liner notes.
Yes, I don't want any liner notes.
Right.
So it's natural for me to gravitate to art house films.
Well, what's interesting
You
is
know?
to do that, to achieve that, you do need how you approach it. You do need that preparation, that real, like, where you can control that image to the place where you can get what it is you're trying to get across. The interesting halfway point of that is somebody like a Terrence Malick,
Right.
who will do that, but it'll take him 12 hours to get the organic
Shooting
butterfly.
trees, He's
I
like
mean,
shooting trees,
so-
the 360 rotations.
so he's not going to set up the butterfly to fly in, but he'll wait all day till he gets it. So there is a place where we meet in the middle somewhere, I think.
Well, we're here.
Absolutely.
In fact, so we are meeting much closer.
Yeah.
Much closer than the middle.
Right.
Because, in fact, actually, on a short film that I had a commission for, I immediately used you.
Yeah, right. That was fun. That was
I
great.
immediately used you as an actor.
Right.
I got to work with you, and when you work with actors that you love, it's like driving. I love to drive. Love to drive. And it's like the difference between driving a Ferrari and a Toyota. If you don't like to drive,
Right.
a Ferrari is a pain in the ass.
Sure, absolutely.
But if you love to drive, and you're a director who loves to drive, you can have actors that can go, when they go from fourth to fifth gear, there's a synergy that makes you remember why you fell in love with this art form. And that's that part of that synergy comes from the authenticity, I think, of seeing what you have in the moment and pulling from that is saying, look, I'm real, you're real.
Right.
This, what is happening between us is real.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I haven't figured that out.
Right.
I don't know yet in my own sense, in my own journey of where where that is for myself, right? It's
You don't?
as
You
a
don't?
thesis. I mean, as a thesis, I couldn't because there are moments where if the vision is changing, then you you need to be able to embrace what is going on.
Absolutely.
To then have foresight. I say this all the time, I say this all the time because I co-direct. I'm in a collaborative artistic relationship.
Yeah.
I collaborate with my co-director, Laura Pellegrini. Laura and I have made, 7, 8 films together. We own a production company, Rosso Films, together, and we say this to each other all the time, that our job is not necessarily to come up with the best idea, but to know when we're in a room of 10 people who are pitching what is the best idea.
Right, sure. The decisions that's what leaders do. They make, you throw the stuff at them, they make the decision.
Yeah.
Does she work like you do?
Laura, I think Laura has a more emotional, tactile. So I would say Laura works from the inside out, right?
Okay.
On a picture. And I work always from the outside.
Well, that's a great marriage then. Perfect. That's exactly what you need.
Yeah.
So let me go back to, all right, your first one, ever handled a camera, ever dealt with a I mean, how do you deal with this stuff for the first time? Do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, intuitively, being on a lot of film sets as an actor, and this, I felt like I was on fire. I felt like I was on fire. I felt
In a
like
good way?
Yeah, and I felt like on fire. I knew what I was doing.
Okay, awesome.
I felt like I was on fire. Like I was.
Did you had a DP obviously?
Yeah, I had
and your communication with this person.
Yeah, and on top of that, I had a big advantage. I had a DP that I still work with all the time, that we're finishing a feature on, who was born in Hong Kong, and his English was his second language.
Okay.
So we could and his English was worse than it is now. So sometimes when you talk about a position or rotation or movement, I have to say things slower, or, we're using visuals
Right.
to communicate to each other.
Perfect.
And I that was a big help for me, because it forced me to become even clearer because when you speak English with someone, when you're speaking English, you can say, okay, well, let's try this, and I'm thinking, and I'm thinking like the chair can be there, and you're thinking left or right, yeah, somewhere over there.
It's a shorthand.
You can get rid of the formality,
Right.
but when you're speaking in someone's second language, they're really asking you, is the chair left?
Yeah, right.
Or is it right?
Right.
And so at that moment, you have to choose.
Right.
It's left.
Right.
And we're going to go with
Forces
that.
you with a...
Yeah. So that was like, I was like, oh, there are consequences immediately in my pre-production meetings.
So the tools themselves, were you familiar with focal lengths and all the things that a visual artist needs to be familiar with when you're on it? Did you know that stuff going in? Because you went to SVA, so you studied cinematography.
Yeah, I did study cinematography. I was fascinated by, obviously, like, key lights and fill lights. I was interested in lighting and production design. I did not have a strong vocabulary of, let's say, Cook Pancros and sort of vintage lenses.
Right.
And
What does what looks
does,
like
and,
what.
and just like what I love, which is a more softer look, a creamier look, a more saturated look. I didn't do lens tests in the early days. I was limited in that sense.
But you had a DP you relied on
And trusted,
Okay.
and I also realized if I didn't lens test things myself, this comes back to being a bit of a control freak,
It's all right.
which is I think what we talk about
Right.
together privately, is that I realized if I didn't lens test and if I didn't know the difference and look at different cooks in the 70s and look at,
Sure.
I mean, I've shot with vintage lenses that didn't even have rings that were able to use a follow focus.
Right. Wow.
So I had to add manually rings because so there are so many things that I had to do, and I realized that if I didn't do them, it was my fault if it didn't come out the way I wanted.
Okay.
And I really placed that responsibility on myself.
You know what's interesting here? This is what I want to get into this.
Yeah.
You've said this a couple of times now.
Yeah.
Where the consequences of the art falling out of your hands are dire. They're terminal. So you said it there, and you said before you said something about I forget what the word was, but it struck me because I think that's where our difference is that I have this sort of laissez-faire. That's what the universe wanted me to give you anyway.
Yeah.
That
was my lesson.
It's like
it's Dharma.
I gave you that. I probably wanted something else, but you got this, and I got comfortable with that real early. And you still have this thing where it hurts.
It hurts
if that picture's not. Yeah. What is that about? And by the way, I'm not knocking or just saying this. I think it's an amazing thing to have. I don't have it.
It's like Dylan Thomas, the raging
rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah. I go kicking and screaming for things that I want. And I don't mean I'm not being diplomatic.
I'm glad I was just on the set.
Well, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm not. It's not to say that I'm not diplomatic, but certainly diplomacy's helped me over the years. And also working with Laura, it's you do compromise it by function of being two people.
Yes.
But I love specificity. I love specificity, and I love clarity of being a great artist. If you're clear, if you're a clear artist, you're a great artist.
Okay.
If you're a simple artist, you're a great artist.
Right.
And it hurts me. It hurts. Why am I holding on? Why is it like life or death?
Yes. What is the perfect vision that falls short? Why does it hurt?
I think at the heart of it is that it's a question of when people say, what is it like? Should I be a director? Should I be an artist? And my answer is, it's going to cost you your life. So you need to understand what the cost is. That's my life. I don't have certain things in my life. I don't have children. I'm not married. I don't have a certain amount of equity.
Right.
I have a production company that has had more revenue than, let's say, in the past 7 years, but we had years where we were running massive deficits. And that's my life.
Right.
And so why does it matter? Because it matters to what I've invested my life's work into.
Right.
It's only that valuable. Now, the beauty of that is that there's equanimity, because you die and it's not going to get all finished.
No.
You never go out clean.
No.
But I need to know that I tried my best.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about artists who come from those two different heads is I don't like the word perfectionist, but I've plenty of people who I work with who are specific and have that intensity of clarity and specificity and the striving towards that thing. And like I said, I am so far the other way, probably to my own detriment. But there's something that's liberating about art being revealed to me that
Please tell me. I'm making a mental note of I need this liberation. Liberate,
Well, it is. It's maybe it's just I'm lazy. I don't know. That could be it too. But there is a liberating factor of I have a story I need to tell, whether it's as an actor or a director, film, theater, wherever it is, and I want to keep that on track. And my job as the director is to keep everybody back on. If they go off the story, that's not where we want to go. But that's about as specific as I'm going to get. I'm going to keep you on the story we want to tell. But once I get into that and I set the scene and I set the place and I get the kind of vibe that's going, I allow whatever's happening to inform me more than what I want it to be. And I originally did it intentionally, where I would force myself to let go of this. But now I'm to the point where I just you could say I don't care, but I don't have that. And what happens is things happen. It's like do you approach the piece of granite with an idea, or you chip away and it reveals itself to you? That's kind of and there's it's like I get a, you know what it is? It's all we're doing this for is pleasure and fun and some sort of satisfaction. So my pleasure is this, like, oh, look at that. Oh, I didn't see that come. It's like a surprise, and there's a revelation in it. So the liberating thing of not carrying this intense weight. And the other thing I realized early is that no matter how perfect I ever think I ever got it, 10 people out of 15 are going to go, well, that sucked. Or I see what you were trying to do, but you know what you could have done. Right. And it's like, well, if you know that it's never, ever going to get 100 out of 100, then why kill yourself? And then in that moment, you free yourself to this thing that reveals itself that you wouldn't have seen. Some things I would never have done or seen. And that's fun. It becomes fun. So it's not just liberating. There's like this surprise factor. There's this thing that I see. My whole belief is that art kind of just is in the ether, and the craft, as I've said, my analogy all the time is art is the poetry, craft is the poem. And the more you try and the right word, the wrong word, you want to hone it as best you can, but at some point you got to let it go like a child, and let it grow and go off to school and do its own life, and you can't hang on to it anymore. And I tend to do that a lot sooner than someone like you would. But it's fun for me. It's liberating to let the kid go off and bang his knee, in a way that I wouldn't never have let him do. That's kind of the picture I get in my head, is that I never would have seen that. I never would have done that if I was so rigid on it. And I'm free. And look what happened. And then whatever's recorded, whether it's on film or whether it's on the stage, especially on the stage, but in the medium of film, it's recorded forever. But okay, that's what it was at that moment in that slice of time. And I can go back and look at it later and go, I should have done this and I should have done that. Do it the next time. That's what it was there. And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful because that's it. That's all it was. So there's something really thrilling to me about that. But I can totally understand wanting to have what's in here out there in a very clear and specific way, because you're afraid of those liner notes where it's like, are people going to get it? Are they going to feel what I'm feeling? So you want to be specific. So I get that. We're like I said, we're at distant ends, but the thing is the same.
The process is going to what I would add is just that. For me, the process of me paying attention is going to happen anyway.
Right. So
that liberation, by being super intentional and super specific, right. I'm going to have to look right. Because it's not done in one stroke.
Right.
So I have to embrace the chaos of what is going to occur, and the process of it and the unknown.
Yeah. I mean, you do it as an actor.
Yeah, and yeah,
You have no choice.
for
I mean,
sure. You're bound.
But at the same time,
it's complicit.
if there's a flame that's supposed to shoot up on the stage over there, you're not just willy-nilly walking around not paying attention to your blocking specific.
Right.
So there's a marriage of the two things,
Yeah.
but I just feel better.
Yeah.
I just
No,
feel better.
I mean, the look. Resources is one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be honest,
Yeah,
right?
no
Resources
question.
is one thing. Adaptability is another.
Yeah.
Every project you get onto, you have sometimes a clear vision of that project or not so clear vision of that project.
Right.
Sometimes, project A, you're seeing it so clearly, and another project, you're happy in the process of discovering what it's going to teach you.
Right.
But what I would say about the teaching you part for me is that they're all my kids and they're all going to teach me something.
Right.
Whether I'm disappointed with them or super proud of them,
Right.
I still love them.
Right.
I still love them and they're still my kids.
Right.
So, I and then I think it comes down to temperament, and there's there's a wisdom too. I can see. I'm in my mid-30s. So like to me, I still see the illusion of designing my life,
Yeah.
and I think, but I can also see a version of myself that's 50.
Right.
That understands that the design of my life is not
Can be folly.
yeah
Sometimes.
is not gonna happen.
Right. It's true. I've certainly arrived at a place where I'm simpler and more comfortable in what I will have, what I won't have. I mean, I spent so many years, saying at this mark I'm this, on this mark I'm that, and then I finally let it go.
What I love about this conversation, what is at the core of this conversation, the core of it is that when I hear you talking about that and our friendship, which is very deep, and my love for you as an artist, my love for you and your sense of process is not related to being incompetent.
Well, I hope not.
You're an extremely efficient. I mean, goes to show that using you as an actor was one of the best decisions I ever made for that film, and directing you and so what you're in the minority of people. To me, this is my POV. Right. This is my perspective, right? This is I'm looking at you from a 50 lens right here, and that many people who say what you say, at least to me as a journalist observer of my entire life, are incompetent. They're saying that they're enjoying the process, but they haven't taken the risk to manage an intentional piece of art form and to take art seriously.
Right.
So, but what is amazing and why I'm, I think, very flexible in listening to this is, and realizing the wisdom in it, is that you're none of those things. I mean, you're very good, and that perspective isn't just isn't a wash. It's an ethos.
Yeah,
it's an ethos.
I think I understand.
Being ours.
Hey, Ed, where are we at on counter? How long have we been going?
We've been going for. Oh, I don't know what the time is.
Just whatever the counter reads, maybe. Is there something that says anything?
There's not even a counter there. Is there something there? No.
Up there? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't know how long we've been going.
I'm going to say we've been going about 40 minutes.
All right, we'll give it another.
Wait. We're at record time of 58 minutes.
All right, so almost an hour.
It is there.
So we'll give it a little more, but we're going good right now. But yeah, I would say that I know those people too, and they're to to be able to accept a place and be able to let go and do those things, I do think you have to earn that.
Right. No,
You
but
can't just say it.
Right. Right. Like you've had pieces that
Yeah.
have happened in your personal
Absolutely.
life that have been major life lessons.
Right.
That have informed your art.
Yeah.
And the decision making of how you come to a play, a character,
Right.
a way of functioning on a film set, and the way that you observe the joy of making art.
Right.
You've earned that.
Yeah, I think
Those are your stripes.
right.
Right?
I think that's the same for all of us. So let's talk about what you think you've earned now. Like, what are you doing? You did the one thing that I saw that really got a lot of acclaim was the documentary piece.
The Girl Who Cannot
Girl Who
Speak.
Can't
That was on
Speak,
that was on NBC.
It was on NBC. I saw Chuck Todd introduced it,
Yeah.
and you had the interview with
Andrea Mitchell.
Andrea Mitchell.
Yeah.
And I want to talk, while we have a little bit of time, I want you to tell me about the Canne experience, because I've never done
Right.
Canne Film Festival,
Yeah.
and you're a veteran of Canne.
Love Canne.
So talk a little bit about, first of all, that's a whole other thing, is documentary filmmaking.
Right.
What was that experience like, and what was the whole festival to television experience like? Because a lot of people in our boots don't have that thing. So let us know what's about.
So, 2018 June, Laura in high school was working at a women's shelter, and she had brought the idea forward to make a documentary documenting women who had their experiences of what happened to them, and how they, more stories of courage, how they sort of recovered from trauma.
Right.
And that was kind of put on the shelf a little bit. And then in October of that year of 2017. I think it was 2017, yeah.
I'm just going to stop this thing real quick. Don't worry, I'll cut around all this stuff.
That's okay.
Okay. And we're still recording here, right? Beautiful. All right. So 2018.
So 2017,
Right.
in October, the Weinstein, like the
right.
scandal
The
blows
Me
up.
Too stuff
The Me Too
explodes.
movement blows up. And we contacted people from that women's shelter, one in Lenox Hill in New York City, and then one in Westchester. And then, but what we probably sourced about 40 stories, which were brutal to listen to. And then, talking about process, that's my out for, like, documentary filmmaking.
Right.
For me, I've done 2 docs, and documentary filmmaking to me is like, unlike the way I approach and look at narrative filmmaking.
Right.
Oh my God. I mean, you're always surprised. You're always looking at what you're doing.
Absolutely.
It's always revealing itself to you. I had no idea that The Girl Who Cannot Speak, if anybody did a Google search of me, they wouldn't find the Ang Lee. They wouldn't find, what they would find.
is that,
all
yeah.
they would find on Google is like an interview, 2 MSNBC interviews, and then another interview on like an ABC, like a show like Law and Crime,
Right.
where I was brought in as a guest to deliberate on a sexual abuse trial, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
On Kellen Winslow, the second's rape case, talking about victim experiences and as a filmmaker experience of taking that in. Look, I kind of knew personality wise that I could. I knew that it's an atomic bomb that you're sitting on, right? That's in front of you.
Yeah.
It's an atomic bomb being a man.
Yeah, especially
Who
now.
are you? What should you do?
Right.
What can you do?
Right. What are you allowed to say?
What are you allowed? I filtered through all these kind of processes with Laura.
Right.
When we thought many months, should we do this documentary? Is it worthwhile? It takes a long time and a lot of thoughtfulness to realize this is a good documentary to do. It's not a time that I screened The Girl Who Cannot Speak where people don't come up to me crying and share with me really personal stories that they say that they haven't told their kids.
Right.
And it's like the most famous piece of film that I've ever
So
done.
let me just bring it back to the craft part of it. So Is that your first doc? Or?
First doc.
Oh, so that's the first doc.
First doc, yeah.
What is,
Because at School of Visual Arts, I only learned narrative filmmaking.
Right. So now what tools are you going into it with? Do you bring your DP and you say, okay, what are we going to shoot this on?
Yeah.
We got to be mobile. What do you specifically
Complete opposite of all docs.
Okay.
I took all the aesthetic things that I love,
Okay.
which would maybe drive you nuts, and I was like, we're going to do a documentary.
But we're going to make it look
We're gonna get rid of all the 5Ds, and this is actually the first time that I'm gonna use an Arri Alexa, and I'm gonna use the best cameras best lenses as possible. Like,
You did a lot of sit-down interview stuff, though.
a lot of sit down interview,
Okay.
but I also use all the Alexas on my cutaways. Like I use a
Run
lot.
and gun stuff, all the B-rolls.
Yeah,
Wow.
on my B-rolls. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, and the old Alexa, not the Alexa Mini that they have now.
No, real X-Law.
Yeah, the body, which was the kit, was so heavy body, and so people say to me, so I could defend it by saying, I would defend it by saying, I wanted them, the women,
Right.
to look like heroes in their story,
So
and they are heroes in their story because it has a saturated look, it's creamier, Modern lenses have a more, a very kind of
digital, tactile, sharp.
They're sharper. They're whiter.
Yeah.
The white balance is different.
Right, so they're not as
you
warm.
can see,
Yeah.
they're not as warm.
Not
you can
as warm.
see their defects.
Right.
Where
That's where we agree, by the way.
Right,
I
yes.
love all the vintage
yeah,
lenses.
yeah. Well, we agree on a lot of things, Russ.
Yeah, right.
But for that piece, it was an intentional piece to have them look like heroes,
All right.
and it was also, I think, an excuse for me to use the Alexa.
Right.
I mean, I really wanted.
Right.
I wanted not. I. This is what I know about sort of myself. I knew if I was going to do a doc, I didn't want it to be like any other doc.
Right.
I knew
It's
that
going to look like a painting.
well, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. There are shots in that are just. Yeah, I remember telling my DP, I remember telling my crew, I was like, I want 18 feet of track. I want 18 feet of track, and they're like, "Is this a documentary?"
Yeah, like, what are you talking about?
Like, what are you talking about, Stefano? They're like, I really think there's something wrong with him. Like, I don't understand. Like, I want 18 feet of track looking into the ocean, and I want it moving into the ocean through these Doric columns
Right.
that are passing through, so that I can cut away into these interviews. And they're like, what are you talking about? 18 feet of track. Like, this is,
Right.
and I, but it works.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous piece of
Works.
work. And
So going to Cannes, that was the
Yes.
first time. I'd been to Cannes since 2011. I always
you're just going to the parties.
I never got into the parties.
Okay, all right.
I had a pass that was like a short film pass that I was never on any guest lists or parties, and it took me, and I always desperately wanted. Cannes to me is still like the Oscars for most people. To me, I really don't care about ever. I had the Academy Awards, but I love the selection from Cannes because you can see an obscure film that wins the Palme d'Or that wasn't made for a lot of money. Like it's a Japanese film. I should know the title of it. It's about like squatters. Anyway, you can see films like Cold War at
Right.
Cannes, and you can see Parasite. I mean, when Parasite first of all, when Parasite won at Cannes, it was the reason that it
Right.
got massive wide distribution.
Right.
No, I saw Parasite like half a year before anybody saw Parasite. It's such a filmmaker place too. People are cutting. Lynn Ramsey still cutting. You Were Never Really Here. Before it screens at
Wow,
Cannes.
that's awesome.
They have cutting rooms for film directors because you can submit a film in progress as a working title.
So what is so now you go as a filmmaker, how do you get there? where do you stay? What do you do? What's the whole vibe like?
Well, when we got in, we came into we were the only documentary as a short to be the top 5 of a collection of like let's say a catalog of like 800, and to see your name there like 8 years later,
That's awesome.
in a book from 2011, that was like, for me, Laura always talks about NBC being a kind of a major pinnacle, but for me as a kid, going to Cannes in my like 20s, in my early 20s, that was like a mind-blowing experience, and the experience of it opened up when you have laurels, and you're able to talk to, and be able to meet other people at other film festivals. I know for a fact, had we never gotten in to Cannes, I know that the Meet the Press was in conjunction with the American Film Institute.
Sure.
And I know that NBC would have never considered the film if it wasn't for having two programmers stamp of approval.
Well, that's third party endorsement, and it's leverage, and it's how you leverage up to the next thing.
Yeah.
As seen in, quoted in the New York Times, you just leverage all those things. So what's your all right? It's too formal now. What's the coolest? What was your fun Cannes moment? Was it during that, or was it when you were younger? What was the fun? I mean, come on. What's the cool Cannes story?
Coolest Cannes story for me was first of all, I've never been on a yacht.
Never
been on a yacht. I'm eating on it.
We're getting to strippers at some point.
Yeah. Yachts and strippers. I mean, just the crew that are there on the yacht serving you oysters and salmon. I mean, just the amount of salmon and the amount of rosé that you're drinking. I mean, your diet in Cannes consists of hitting up the Cannes village of different countries and going to these private parties, Scandinavian parties, Finland parties, and pretending that you're on.
Say that again.
And just like Scandinavian parties, Finland, Norway, and you're at these parties and you're meeting other filmmakers and you're getting drunk. You're not eating a regular diet. It consists of Nespresso coffee, San Pellegrino, rosé. Movies, rosé. You sleep 5 hours a night. You have to go to the parties because so many distributors, sales agents are at the parties. You're wearing a tuxedo to premieres, to go see Parasite, to go see Terrence Malick's film A Hidden Life, which was at Cannes. And then the coolest thing that happened was one of the programmers, who was a Canadian programmer, his name is Danny Lennon, amazing guy, works for Vans, but also works for Telefilm Canada. He had programmed us as his top 15 films to see at Cannes.
Wow.
It was A Girl Who Cannot Speak. He comes to me, we're walking. Danny had never accepted my Facebook friend request since 2011. In 2018, he accepts it. Comes up to me. He never fucking paid any attention to me. He says to me, you did a really good film there. He says, there's a lunch happening tomorrow with Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, no.
Who's on the jury that year.
Wow.
You should come.
Yeah, you should come, Stefano. You should come.
I got to spend time
with Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. What's that experience? You talking shop? Like you're a filmmaker at Cannes? So
I asked him.
So Blade Runner 2049 must have been in.
Blade Runner 2049 had Blade Runner 2040. I'm not. Yeah, it had just come out.
It had just come out.
It had just come out. He hadn't. I don't know if he'd started. He was in pre-production for Dune.
Right. Sure.
And
you just shoot.
He was super tired, obviously, because he had to see every film that was in competition like twice, and they give him these. They sing it with everybody, and then he was also seeing it privately to review things. First of all, we talked about being Canadian.
Okay.
Growing up in the same part of Canada, in Quebec.
Okay.
Both being able to speak French. And we talked about a mutual mentor that he had, who was a documentary filmmaker.
Right. Yeah, that's where he came from.
Right. And so I remember talking to him at this luncheon and asking him, are you ever going to go back? And he said, I promised him before he passed away that I would make a documentary film, a Canadian documentary film.
Right.
And we talked shop. He talked to me about how frustrating it was with the studio system that when he was preparing for Dune, that when he's using digital composites, that they want to see all the camera movements on a computer ahead of time.
Right. All pre-visualized.
So okay, we're looking at using what you have in the moment. They're looking at Adobe digital software where they're like, okay, this is page 14 in the script.
Right.
Yeah, this is 3/8. Show us, and then digitally composite it.
Right.
Where is your light source?
Wow.
Where is the characters? We're gonna give you all the tools, and if we don't like this is not gonna work. So it's like, first of all, and by the way, I know that in this conversation, the past hour that we've had, where I look like I know you've taken the position of being sort of the hippie, and I'm a little bit more of
Yes.
the, more of the,
Funny how that worked
Yeah,
out.
the dad.
And you got your shoes off.
Yeah, I
which
got my
can't
shoes
even-
off. Yeah. But I don't like to storyboard.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like to storyboard very much.
No.
I wouldn't say that publicly, I mean, now we're saying, but there's some people who really love storyboarding. Not only do you have to like storyboarding, you have to spend hours upon hours with a team
Yeah.
of software people
Wow.
digitally compositing.
Well, I mean, the massive amount of
investments.
investment. It's like, going in, there's just no way I'm going to make this picture without that. But I guess if you're going to pay me,
You would do it.
I would do it.
You would
no
do it. And
problem.
he's, Denis Villeneuve's a great director because
a fantastic
he's the
director.
heart in a massive machine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the machine has to have a ghost.
Yeah,
The machine has to have a heart.
absolutely.
And for a guy to make Sicario, Enemy,
Yeah. Arrival.
Arrival is so poetic.
Yeah, beautiful picture.
Such a poetic
and
movie.
a tough story to tell that way. It really, Alec Baldwin once called it like you're a ship captain on a massive aircraft carrier. Like you're not captaining the orca from Jaws.
Yeah.
You're just this little guy on a bridge and this massive thing that you're trying to steer into this thing. It's
Takes
like,
30 minutes to just
a
move
turn,
it a
yeah,
turn.
right.
Just a little section.
I don't know. I guess I wouldn't turn anything down, but it would be such a mind-blowing experience to have to do that.
2021, if Denis Villeneuve comes, you got to have dinner. We got to have a luncheon with him. You got to. We're gonna. I've been telling.
Why do they have to have
a
it in May?
I know.
Because I gotta
Weddings.
I gotta pay my bills.
Yeah.
But man, I would have gone. That was my biggest regret is not going to Cannes with you, man. I'll make that happen.
There's a lot of time left.
There is a lot of time.
We're both single, and
You're not
there's a
kidding.
lot.
God damn it.
There's a lot of.
I should be in France
There's
right
a lot.
now.
There's a lot of time. I mean, when people.
I got the hair, the old kind of cool old fox look now.
Yeah. In a tuxedo, you clean up.
I'd be Clooney.
Right.
Forget it, man.
Absolutely. I mean, I like being the dad, taking crews. So what I do.
Oh, so you could take me under your wing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the things I love about being a director too.
Right.
I like that part of myself. I grew up with a very kind of. Both of us talked about our dads.
Right.
Dad, your father was in the
World War II.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I grew up strong alpha males, and my grandfather just passed away.
Yes. He would have.
Well, he would have been 102.
102, which is he would have been about my dad's age if my dad had lived. They're about the same age.
1918.
Yeah, 1918, exactly. Would have been exactly the same age.
Yeah, and so what I would tell my crew when we were working on our feature was, I'll take you to Cannes. If we do a really good job, I may not have tons of money as an independent filmmaker, but if I have 4 passes with our company, and if you want to go to Cannes, I'll make it happen. So I've taken. I've taken tons of people to Cannes.
Right,
with me.
right. Well, I'll be on the list.
Yeah.
Once I get. So all right. So I don't want to keep this too long. We're
Sure.
cooking, but
Sure.
so as a craftsman, as an artist, 2 things to kind of finish the thread. Yes, you're in your mid-30s. Do you think you have revealed a certain amount of truth that you're satisfied with as an artist? And what is the thing you want to do now? With it, you don't have to reveal plot details or story, even if you don't have it. But what is the story you want to tell? What's the direction you want to go? And in that direction, are there specific kind of fun tools as a filmmaker you want to try and use that you haven't used, or visuals or whatever? So, where are you now? Are you satisfied with the direction and the truths you've revealed as an artist, with the clarity you want to do? And going forward, what are those things you want to do, and what are the fun tools you want to play with as a craftsman?
I'm always happy I'm an optimistic person in general, but I'm never satisfied.
Not surprising.
Yeah, so I'm never satisfied with things that I think the things that I've done have brought joy to other people, and that's the ether part of it, that they've got value to them, and they'll live longer than me. They'll
Okay, that's
they'll live way longer. I mean, if I have kids or anybody wants to remember what I was thinking at a period in my life, you have these things.
Right.
So that's beautiful about filmmaking, and that's sort of where I'm at now. And where am I going is I still am drawn. I'm still drawn to underrepresented, undervalued artists. I'm working on a documentary that I just made a package, an 82-page package to the Sundance Institute about Albert Diaz, who was Jean-Michel Basquiat's best friend. And it's about 1980s New York City graffiti. Because Al Diaz was never looked at as a real quote-unquote artist because he was associated with Basquiat. And to me, I will always defend and look at the overlooked underdogs. It's in the emblem. It's like in the ether of the embodiment of my desire of telling a story, and that project's going to take me 3 years. I'm shooting. I got 1 day to shoot. I got a few days to shoot. Maybe in October.
This is a documentary.
It's a documentary.
Okay, right.
Yeah, featured documentary, and so I feel that my life's purpose is in that niche of art house films. They don't necessarily have to be art house, but they have to be stories where I'm looking over something that has been passed over.
Oh.
I like being someone like that, like an archaeologist.
Right. I'm so glad that I'm in your life then, because I feel I
You
I
told
am
me?
that exact guy.
You told me.
What'd I tell you?
You know what? I remember this. So just that this is a perfect little anecdote as we end off. You said, "I'm so glad that you hired me for this project. Some people had forgotten that I was still working."
That's so many did.
The moment, that's the first thing you said to me. We were on the second floor of a house.
Right.
That you helped me get through a colleague of yours, a close friend of yours, and I remember that. I remember the intensity and the honesty that in your eyes when you said that to me, and I was like, I can be that. I can be that person. I can captain that type of ship. I can understand that, and then turn it into something
Great, because I'll take a cabin on that cruiser. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
All right. So and is there anything visually, narratively that you want to do? Aside from the documentary stuff. I mean, what is there you're looking to do picture wise?
Fascinated by there's a Chilean director that I've become blown away and fascinated by, using the aspects of fire and color together in a Chilean film I saw on Mubi.com. The film is called Emma, E-M-A. The director is Pablo Larraín. Pablo Larraín did a film, Jackie, that was produced by Darren Aronofsky, right, with Natalie Portman, and so I'm interested in his films that have aspects to staying away from handheld, staying away as much as I can, as much as possible from set, and having set pieces that are very observational, where you don't know whether I want to start using technology not for the sake of seeing special effects, but for the, dare I say it, deceptive qualities.
Right.
It's my love of a technician like David Fincher.
Right.
How never using all the blood being composite blood.
Yeah.
So if you look at a girl with dragon tattoo,
Yeah.
right, and Daniel Craig is having his resets, all the blood that is coming out in his reaction, there's no blood. It's composite blood, and so for me, that's an area as a director where I have to stretch to learn how to use technology to help the story and the filmmaking and the aesthetic quality where it stays, has this lush art house look and has no lingering scent of technology.
Right, right. You're a magician. You want to do the trick, and we don't know how you did it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Stefano, my friend, I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me. I hope that we revealed some truth out of our art and craft, and like I said, I can't wait to work with you again. I hope as actors, as filmmakers, wherever we end up, on a stage somewhere, I don't really care. In a party on a yacht is fine with me too. So wherever we can do it, I am totally cool to do that.
Thanks for having me, Russ.
Thanks, man.